Welcome to Highly Affected by Her Surroundings, the podcast where we reveal how your environment can make or break your day. Hosted by me, Nicole Roe, owner and lead designer at Nixon Interiors. Today, I am doing something that I have technically recorded a few times, but never actually published. It's a solo episode. I've wanted to do some solo episodes over the past couple years, but the topics never quite made sense. I've gone back and listened to them and they just didn't hit how I wanted them to. But today, this is different. This is so on brand for Highly Affected by Her Surroundings, but also deeply personal to me. And we've been getting DMs and questions about this. So what am I going to talk about? This is my primary suite renovation that we recently wrapped up, or at least that 95% wrapped up. And one of the biggest things with it is the reason behind it. And I harp all the time on, I truly do believe that we are highly affected by our surroundings. Yes, this title is a little humorous, a little cheeky, but I think it's true. Those that know me say that, my headstone is going to say highly affected by her surroundings, and probably for multiple different reasons. But I think the primary suite renovation was one of our first big renovations at my house. And that's not normally the first deep reno our clients tackle or people in general tackle. They want to tackle the areas that everyone gets to see, the kitchen, the living, all of these areas where your guests get to spend time. But I think as humans, we forget what is most important to us and how we are going to live our lives and what's going to affect us, honestly, the most deeply. And that is where we end our day and that is where we start our day. And to me, renovating our primary suite wasn't selfish. It wasn't something that I feel like I should apologize for, or anyone should apologize for, because of how I feel now versus, how we felt when we moved in and kind of how we felt after some phase one modifications, because I know how my brain works. I know what I like. I know what I need. I've, had the light bedroom. I've had the dark bedroom. I've had all of these spaces. And now I was ready to commit to the room that I'm going to love for at least a decade. So how was it before? When we moved in 7 years ago, picture the wood paneled walls, that medium kind of yellow, sun faded, a little orange, thin, veneer wood paneling with the most ornate, dusty, gaudy draperies with swags. That's what it was. It had the parquet floors, it had the connected bathroom was all brown, brown and beige, but it was all built very well. The bathroom was solid. It worked for us. We knew it was going to be a big project, but we also knew when we did our bathroom, we were going to have to do the boys' bathroom, which we did, which I may talk about today, may not. But old houses, the way they're built, the tile is on there good. There's that chicken wire mesh in between. The demo is going to shake things up. So if you're going to do one wall, you really need to do the other wall or you're going to regret it later. The way plumbing ties into each other, you really needed to tackle both. And I knew this wasn't going to be, a quick $10,000 reno over the course of 3 weeks. This was us really getting into it. So that meant we had to be fully committed, not just little facelift committed, but fully committed. So I have gotten so many questions on why I chose what I chose, what we didn't include, where we splurged, where we prioritized, what regrets I had, and, if budget wasn't a factor, what would I have done differently? And so I think we can definitely dive into that. It wasn't just a renovation. It really was intentional design for how I know I want to feel, how I know I want my family to feel, and really how to just show kind of the Nixon vibe and experience in my own space. Because we do it for clients all the time. I needed to take the time for myself. So Really, my primary suite was designed around a few things. Function was huge. This space isn't large. It's definitely a smaller primary suite. Emotional regulation was huge for me as someone who runs at a very high speed all day, but also crashes very hard. Like, I needed this. Medium contrast. We talk about people's contrast levels all the time on this show and in real life. Natural tones. My house has a tone personality. It's in the terrazzo, it's just in the home. We needed to kind of lean into that as opposed to run away from it. And it needed to be durable, but also super livable. Yes, my children aren't using my bathroom, but my husband is. We have a dog. The kids do sneak in there. Like, it happens. I didn't want to have to be worried every time somebody went into my bedroom or bathroom. So, why we renovated, it really, I mean, the house is around 50 years old. Like, it was the original things. We painted when we moved in just because it needed that coat of paint. But in general, it was the original finishes, guys. Like, it was brown, the spaces were tight, and it was aging. Like, we literally had a tile that was taped into my shower, like wall, to keep it in place near this faucet. Like, it was, like, stuff was starting to fall apart. A lot of it had survived, but it just wasn't functioning. Everything was just, the faucet was a battle, all of it was a battle. But truthfully, it didn't reflect who we are now and who we're wanting to become. This is where we're starting our day and ending our day. Like, we needed this to literally elevate our life. But, the function, the layout decisions were tricky. This space is less than 100 square feet. It's less than 10 by 10. Like, it is tight. And I did not want to steal any more of the boys' bathroom because that was just a whole another can of worms. So it was like, what made sense here? We went with one sink. It's not a two-person bathroom. We're not both going to be in there brushing our teeth and putting makeup on. Like, the one sink meant more counter space. We both got a chunk of counter space. We both got more drawers. We needed a storage tower. The bathroom before really didn't have anywhere to store the towels and, any of the other stuff that's not just the products. And I have stuff, I like to think that I'm not excessive with it, but there is things that I'd rather put behind closed doors. Whereas the way our bathroom was before, we had a few Lazy Susan type trays that we kept everything on. So once again, you're staring at everything the entire time. So storage was huge. The storage tower gives us drawers. It gives us a door. It even has a cool pull out that I keep like all my everyday stuff in. So, all the morning stuff, like everything is in this pull out. So I can just get it out. I can stand there at the mirror with the door open. The shower footprint did not get larger. It actually got a smidge smaller, which my husband and my kids were like, there's no way this got smaller. It feels so much bigger. But before, the ceiling used to drop down. The shower head was very low. The tiled walls went all the way up. The opening to the shower was really tight. Like, I think it was like maybe 26 inches, which I'm a petite person. My husband is, a taller man. It was tight and it let the cold air in and all of that. So we wanted the shower to feel larger. How did we do that? Glass. We took the ceiling all the way to the top, which it had zero reason for it being lower beyond them wanting a cozy shower. Previously, we measure, I always call it boob height, but it's like we take the client and it's like, where's your shoulder hit? So if somebody were to walk into your bathroom while you were in the shower, like, what part on your body are you comfortable with them seeing? So, me with the 4 boys, nobody wants to see anybody else shaving their legs in the shower. I don't care what people say. Like, it's not pretty. So we go with about, 48 inches plus or minus based on the client. That gives you the sense of privacy. It gives you a sense of safety, but it also gives you an opportunity to hide the valves, to hide your niche, to really like kind of keep everything tucked in. And in my case, it allowed us to splurge on the tile that's on the top part. Um, but yes, glass in the shower makes it feel so much larger. We also, instead of going with a decorative mirror at the vanity, I went storage tower to wall, countertop, backsplash to ceiling with a cut mirror. And to me, this reflects everything. We had, the holes cut, so there is sconces mounted on it. but it feels intentional. It feels like on purpose. It feels like there's a reason behind it. It doesn't feel builder grade. It doesn't feel like it's, this just no other reason. It was done on purpose. Um, kind of the shower, I really wanted to be able to reach the shower valve when I opened the door. So to me, that was super important. And the niche, I think that's one thing people don't always think about. And I don't want to see my stuff. I may buy the pretty branded bottles or whatever that is, but my husband will be that Pantene Pro V 2 for 1, clean and clear face wash for life type person. And then it just starts to get cluttered. Nobody needs to see that. So being able to tuck the niche on the back side of that wall so you only see what's in there when you're in there, to me is like a really big deal. We also have block on 2 of the walls in the shower. So like to cut a niche into that, like you can't do that. So we really either had to build a ledge or do a niche. We did a ledge in the boys' bathroom, but the niche in ours made sense. But my other priority with the layout was finding a tub that fit. So we did not have a tub previously. I am 5'3". So I literally measured kind of like what would be the minimum size tub that would work for my body that I would be happy with. And we had room for it. We were able to place it under the window. It is slightly off center, but with styling, I think it makes complete sense. So I am really happy with it. I am, that sensory need of being able to take a magnesium soak at the end of a long week or after a hard workout, or just when I need to decompress, to be able to get fully into a tub was a very big deal. I also did not want a white tub. I knew the white was going to be too much contrast. The walls are white, but they're not like insanely white. They're kind of an off-white. They're West Highland white by Sherwin-Williams. So the green tub to me just felt grounding. Like it is this beautiful sculpture in the corner, it is stunning. And we didn't tile behind it. We didn't do anything else in that area. It's just the green tub and it makes sense. Um, Layout wise, I really don't think I would change anything. I was very, very pleased with how it all turned out. Like there really wasn't a lot of options. We didn't want to move the toilet because once again, we have concrete floors on the second floor. So like everything really needed to kind of stay where it was. So that really kind of made sense. But the material side of things, this is where it was super exciting for me. Most designers, we have like a basket in our office of like our favorite things. Samples come in or we're at a showroom and we fall in love with something. So for me, there was a few tiles from Artistic Tile that have been in my like I love you forever list. And one of them was the half moons with the black marble background. It has like half a dozen or so different marble like half circles as the pattern. And if you look at our show notes or look at, our Instagram or YouTube, you'll see all of these, pictures and videos. But that was like the kickoff. Like it had more blues in it than I originally thought I was going to go for, but I think it makes sense. I then leaned into more of the greens and pinks and creams in a large 24 by 24 terrazzo with a really chunky aggregate. Like it looks fun and it's a little different. We have terrazzo throughout our house, but nothing like this. And except for my cabinet, custom cabinet guy was like, it looks like the underlay of carpet, when you remove it. And now I can't unsee it, but I think it gives that kind of, once again, it's real materials and it just feels timeless in my house. I don't think terrazzo feels timeless in everyone else's house, but it feels timeless in our house because our kitchen is terrazzo, our basement is terrazzo. Like we have these little moments of terrazzo throughout. But we also really had not everything could be the showstopper, right? Like, we have this terrazzo floor, we have this marble decorative tile in the shower. So we were able to really ground it with a rust colored tile from Sonoma Tile. It's in a very simple subway tile, like kind of pattern. We horizontal straight stacked it. We went with, I think Raven was the grout. It's almost a black grout, which wasn't my first choice originally, but after looking at it a few times, I realized that going dark grounded from ceiling to floor in the shower, because we went with it was also from Artistic Towel, a black marble like mosaic on the floor and ceiling. So it was almost like we carried the black through. And it's really the only black we used in the space. I have black bronze, almost black windows, and black frames on all my art, but really that was the only black. Plus, the vanity is like a stained black wood. But the rust color is really throughout my house. So I think that made it feel like a very soft neutral and kind of just gave it some personality. Uh, I had mentioned we use West Highland white for the walls. When I first moved into my house, we used highly reflected white by Sherwin-Williams. My windows have a kind of weird tint to them, and it was really tricky. Like pure white and some of the other go-to whites, even Greek Villa, they all looked off. Highly reflected white was the good choice when we moved in. We needed that super clean slate. But now, as we've been painting, as one does when they have dogs and husband and kids every couple years, the West Highland white has appeared to be like the right white for our space. Um, the other kind of real materials side of it was I am team no Schluter. If you know me, I'm team no Schluter. If I use Schluter, it is for a very intentional reason. Like we're using Schluter in a commercial project to end cap some reception tile. It makes sense there. That is the purpose of it, and I'm good with it. But to throw Schluter into a bathroom that is full of marble and full of these other kind of just great materials doesn't make sense, didn't make sense. We didn't want bullnose everywhere because, once again, when you're taking the shower glass to the ceiling, you don't really like having the bullnose and having it change. And we had the mosaic on the ceiling, and then we had the different mosaic on the walls. We needed like something solid to really hold everything. About a year and a half ago, I was in the boneyard of one of the fabricators I use near my office. And the boneyard is a remnant yard. It's all the extra leftover pieces when they've done other projects. Typically, fabricators will tell their client, like, hey, I'll hold on to this for 6 months, but after that, or whatever the time is, it's no longer yours, it's mine. So the boneyards are great if you're doing, small spaces that need countertop. But they had this onyx that had some weird cutouts. I think they had done some sinks or something with it that I fell in love. And it was 2cm. 2cm is like best case for a shower for all the components, for the jambs and the ledges and the niche and the curbs. And in my instance, going up on the ceiling. So we were able to use the onyx. It's a really pink and cream, and it's stunning. But for the countertop, we needed something else because there wasn't enough in the boneyard. We found another boneyard quartzite that had the most beautiful linear movement with the greens and the beiges, a smidge of blue and a little bit of gray and black. And like, it just made sense. So quartzite is insanely durable. I recommend it for everyone, for almost everything. But because we had taken the faucet for a wall mount faucet, we brought the quartzite up and mimicked the half moon shape on the backsplash. So that was something that was kind of one of those little bit unexpected. Um, my other thing that I love with real materials is really thinking through the hardware and allowing that to be mixed up some, and not just being like everything has to be satin brass or everything has to be oil rub bronze. I love mixing metals, but you have to do it very, very intentionally. So my plumbing was Kingston brass. It's their satin brass. It is beautiful. It's a brighter brass, so it's definitely, it stands out against my dark materials. So I wanted my hardware on the cabinets that we got from Plank, which is one of my favorite vendors out of the UK. We actually did a fun party with them when they were here for KBIZ a couple weeks ago. So they're a vendor that their quality is killer, their styles are great, and they are up-leveling their finishes like crazy. So we brought in their dark brass. It's kind of a bronzy brass mix for the hardware. So I have my shiny brass from Kingston Brass. It's satin, so it's not shiny, but it's that brighter brass for the plumbing. I have the darker brass for all the hardware, and then I had bronze for the light fixtures. So we had gone with some Hudson Valley light fixtures. We did some shaded wall sconces, which I know there's a lot of designers that say don't use shades in a bathroom. It doesn't give enough light. For me, I find it totally fine. If at some point the shades, I guess, get gross because of product or something, I can replace the shades. But for me in this phase of life, like I am good with shaded light fixtures in the bathroom. I like the softness of it. And I wanted some fabric in there beyond, the towels and the floor mat. The light fixture above the tub is that bronze, but it has a really pretty sage green, kind of crackle, heavy, kind of dome style shade to it. So what I did, because I did not want an exposed bulb above my tub, like that is the worst idea ever if you're laying in the tub looking up. Like, talk about being affected by your surroundings. That would be impossible. So you can buy bulbs that are kind of, they almost look dipped in gold or silver. So they don't reflect any light down. It pushes all the light up. So now if I'm in the tub with the light on, it's all bouncing off the green, which is really, really pretty. But when you mix your metals and mix your hardware, I think I have 3 or 4 different sizes of hardware in the bathroom. It feels thought out. And when your hardware feels good, like when you're grabbing that pole, or turning on that sink and it feels good, it doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel flimsy, like that is just huge. And whenever stuff's not matchy, it doesn't look like you went to one showroom and picked out everything. It all looks very, very intentional, and the buzzword of authentic, because it is authentic. And being authentic to me is also the styling. You can't just go, to a Home Goods or, a Ballard Design or whatever and style your space. That is going to fall flat. So I love to collect artwork over time. I have artwork from friends of mine that are artists. I have artwork that I've gotten at local vintage shops. I have artwork that I've gotten at art fairs or art walks. I have artwork that I've ordered from Cherish. And everything in my bathroom is not expensive artwork. I think every piece in there was less than $150. Then I had everything framed similarly. So some of it I had already had framed, some of it not. In my house, we frame almost everything in black because I like to move stuff around on a regular basis. So we put in, I think there's like 5 pieces of art in the bathroom, a ton of plants, plants that are propagating, plants that are in wall hanging baskets, plants on shelves, plants on the windowsill, plants on the floor. Greenery in your bathroom and live plants, you have water right there. It makes it super easy to keep everything alive. But the collectedness of the things you find, I think I have some brass cranes in there. I think I have some really cool, I have this decorative hand I got at Junely, which is a local vintage shop that I keep some rings on. Like, it just adds a layer of you. And I think when we're designing for clients, we always don't get to add that kind of super last layer. But the bathroom, like, this is my restoration. This makes me happy. And now to like the bedroom, like, this is my calm. Like, this is what I think every human deserves, every founder, every business owner, every person that is, raising a family, to have a space that you can retreat to and that you're proud of. Like, guys, I make the bed every day now. Like, I was never a bed maker because it was just more of an afterthought. We had nice sheets, we had nice pillows, but in general, like, I didn't have a proper bed. I didn't have a proper bedroom. Like, making the bed didn't add a level of anything because the room was kind of crap. So we, throughout our upstairs and main level, we had installed new hardwood floors. I went with a European white oak, which I know is very, kind of trending right now, but it's from a Swedish company. It's made in Sweden. I'm actually going to Sweden this summer, so I'm hoping to connect with this company while I'm over there because their product is so good, but they're wide plank and there's no knot. So it's very clean. It's very durable. It's waterproof. Like, it fits my family's life and I love it. So that's kind of the foundation of the bedroom. Then we wanted a rug that was durable, yes, gave a slight pattern, yes. But for those of you that have pets and kids, like I have, kind of a medical dog who has issues occasionally. I wanted something that I wouldn't be upset if it got, had an accident on. And I know my vintage wool rugs, you can get anything out. But for this situation, what I really wanted was kind of that waterproof layer. So we went with an Anderson Teftex carpet that we had bound at Tucker Carpets locally. So it has that animal layer. So, if my dog, bless her, has a seizure on the rug, and there's something that happens, like I'll leave that to your imagination. Like, we can easily clean it. Or if a kid comes in and something happens, or I drink like a magnesium drink before bed, which is probably not a shocker to anyone, that I, in the middle of the night, have totally spilt my drink. So it's kind of one of those things where I am completely as guilty as the children occasionally for that. Um, the other thing that I wanted in my room was I knew I wanted a wallpaper, but I didn't want it to be like a pattern. I didn't want it to just be a grass cloth. I wanted something that like really just surrounded me in like a feeling. And I have a friend named Studi who her company is VRSA. So shopvrsa.com is her website. But they do these like custom murals. It's all made in India by just artisans there. It's made to order, and somehow it gets to us faster than some of the stuff, we order locally. But it's this green and cream and white and all these kind of shades where it looks like you're engulfed in really like some tropical woods. And really, our bedroom is already that way. When you look out, we're on a second floor and you look into the treetops around us. I took that beautiful color and painted that color on the ceiling. So it's a rich jade green. I cannot remember the color of it, but we also painted my husband's closet that same green. My closet, I actually took the mauve pink color out of the bathroom and my rug and was able to paint my closet that color, which to me, once again, having a house of all these boys, having a spot that's kind of pink really feels special for me because I can walk in and I can shut the doors. But kind of, going back to the room feeling magical, like that is what I needed. I needed that medium contrast. Before, our bedroom was black. I went in there and painted it like a black. I don't remember exactly what color, but it was dark. And I remember wanting, it all to be black, but the painter was like, we can't paint your ceiling black. And my husband kind of agreed with them at the time. So I know I needed a darker room. When I was a teenager, I had a darker room. In college, if I was in a place that I was allowed to paint, I painted my room darker. So I like having that darkness in there. What, I wanted it to feel like a hug, as cheesy as that is. I can go in. We have wall sconces from Hudson Valley on the wall. They have a great little walnut detail on the bottom of them, which, goes with the walnut doors. So that was my other thing before is our house has and had very cheap doors. They were hollow core doors. They were starting to they had like a veneer on them that was starting to chip off over the years. You could really hear anything and everything that was happening on both sides. And that really wasn't what we wanted. So we had found some doors that from a vendor, and they're almost commercial grade. So they're solid, they're veneer, and they look like walnut. So a few years ago, my husband and I were at the Shelbourne in Miami. So it's part of the Kelly Wearstler Proper Hotels collection under Marriott. And they had kind of a lot of that tone with wood. So it's all these different types of wood, but they make sense. Also the Austin Proper, which I went to years ago as well, had, so I wanted walnut doors with my white oak floors, and they needed to both be perfect. And it was worth it to me. So all the trim around the doors is walnut. So having this walnut on the sconces with the little brass toggles below them or knobs to, dim them and turn them on was really important to me. So when you talk through lighting in a bedroom, it's like, what are the purposes of the lighting, right? So we said I have the wall sconces that we can actually control from the bed. We both have our own little dimmer on them. We are ceiling fan people. So I found a ceiling fan that kind of blended in a little bit more, but really that light on there isn't a light that we use often. Our shades are on motors. So that was kind of the other part of it, was natural light is big to me, but also I don't like to be interrupted by light when I sleep. So my local workroom, shout out to Mary, who's amazing, helped me create these Roman shades that are the same color green as the ceiling. And we actually did them wider than we would normally do in a window, and we mounted them high. So Romans typically have light bleed that comes out the side if you mount them on the outside instead of an inside mount. But I knew I wanted that height because our ceilings are not tall. So with that, we were able to have the natural light during the day. I have a really pretty lamp that I've had for years on the dresser in the room, but there's not a plug there. And we weren't really able to add a plug there because behind it is a pocket door. So my solution was to buy a couple packs of the rechargeable light bulbs off Amazon. And there's a few brands of them that you can set the temperature, you can set the color, you can put them on a timer. They charge with USB-C. So I always have like one or two charged in the drawer. So when one dies, but my trick with it is to always like turn the timer on. So if you turn it on at night or turn it on in the morning, click like the 30-minute timer so that you're not like draining the battery. Because if you're like me and you leave the room and you don't really turn anything off. So having the timer just is helpful. Um, but yeah, so I think the lighting in there was obviously a big deal, but dimmers on everything is obviously a huge deal. Putting outlets where you needed outlets, like my husband has more on his side of the bed. I don't charge my phone or anything next to me, but I do have one of those hatch alarms. My mom had gifted it to me for Christmas, and that is something I plug in, but I don't really plug in anything else next to my bed, which is kind of nice. We also have an air purifier in the room that, it just kind of helps. But kind of going back through, the last item that I hadn't mentioned was my bed. This was the showstopper. This was the inspiration. Honestly, like the half moon tile in my shower and my fabric on my bed, and I'm completely blanking on the vendor of the fabric, is the showstopper. It is this almost like mountain peaks with like half a dozen medium contrast colors. I wanted my bed made out of this. It has been up on my vision board. It's been in my stack of samples. I drew out a bed very intentionally. My husband is tall. He hates a footboard. I do not like seeing the end of a mattress. So I made it where the footboard hits the mattress. So if his feet go over, it's not a big deal. My headboard needed to be a very specific height because we are under a window. So I wanted it to hit, about an inch below the window just to give some breathing room. And we also needed additional storage. Like I said, the room's not big, our closets aren't huge. So we designed it with two drawers on both sides. And the drawers actually are really deep. So I'm able to stash like pajamas, or really, I have like my overnight bag in there, just all this stuff that's kind of nice to have, in your bedroom, in your room, that before we were storing in other places. So I think the bed being the showstopper, the bed being the splurge, is definitely like no regrets there. Like I will have this bed for the rest of my life. One of my kids may have this bed someday. Like, heck, bury me on this bed potentially. But all of this is a good show in saying designing authentically for you. Don't design for Pinterest. Don't design for a specific magazine. Don't design so that your mother-in-law is happy about it. Like designing for you, for your real life, how you live, how you function, and what brings you not only joy, but peace at the end of the day. So what I would do differently if I did it again. I did not hire a contractor for this. I did it all kind of myself. I had contractors I called with SOSs, but in general, the next time we do a project, we will do it as a proper project and have a contractor fully on board, because that was exhausting. And I think it honestly added a good 2.5 months to our project. as for doing it differently within my budget, I don't think I would do anything differently. If I had an unlimited budget or wanted to spend an extra $25,000, my dream would be to someday have a large skylight in my shower, like large round skylight. So maybe that's, a future vacation home. But that was one thing I was like, oh, I wish the shower had a skylight, but we had just done our roof. It didn't make sense to move stuff. And like we were already over budget. I wish I would have done heated floors in the shower and bathroom. We've had a very cold winter, and that's kind of made me wish that I had done the heated floors. But once again, the mats for the heated floors aren't expensive. The labor isn't that intense, but like the actual electronics of it can be a little tricky. I had done the smart toilet. So I have the, heated toilet seat, and our exhaust fan actually has a heater on it as well because we had the power there from the old heater in there. So I have the heat from the exhaust fan and I have the heated toilet seat. So, that's pretty close, right? But I think in general, I am very pleased. For me, the medium contrast creates calm. The nature tones regulate me. The storage is the mental clarity. Function creates freedom, and the surroundings absolutely affect my mood. So, what I encourage designers and I encourage listeners, like, don't design for trends, design for how you want to feel. Be honest about how you live. Like, it is now such a joy to go into my room at the end of the day. It is such a joy to take a shower. Like, even my husband got out of the shower the first night. He was like, if I didn't love you before I took that shower, I would love you now, because that joy of that experience, especially for us after showering in a tiny, guest bathroom shower or our outside pool shower for 6 months, like that is insane. And just the physical sensations of being able to sit in bed and take a deep breath, to be able to wake up in the morning and take your time making your bed and getting ready. Like, I am so full of gratitude. Like, I really am just grateful for all of the hard work from all of, my team members, my trades, my vendors, everybody that really just provided, whether it was gifted product or, just advice and guidance. So grateful. But, please send me a DM, reach out if you have any other questions. Like I said, search on our Instagram, our show notes will definitely show some pictures. If you liked this, let me know, and I can do, a whole nother deep dive on my boys' bath, because I do think that when designers design their own spaces, like, we can tell you all the things, ask me for links, do whatever you want to do, because, this was something I'm proud of, but something I learned a lot about. So thank you guys, and we will chat soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Highly Affected by Her Surroundings. I truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast. It helps others discover the show, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. For more behind-the-scenes content and design inspiration, follow us on social media. You can find me, Nicole, at Nixon Interiors, and the podcast at Highly Affected by Her Surrounding. We'll be sharing updates, sneak peeks, and exclusive offers you won't want to miss. Plus, if you want a recap or more details from today's episode, you can find the show notes at arnixoninteriors.com under the Highly Affected by Her Surroundings tab. Once again, thank you for your support, and I can't wait to connect with you on social. See you next time.